Hello, story time. My name's Loraine and I published my first book under a pen name, Loraine Kaling. I published that book in May of 2022, just 2 weeks before I was due to appear in the civil court in Cartagena for precarious eviction, where my partner had forced through the eviction process from October 2020, when he informed me he was going to take legal action to evict me, and 10 failed attempts later, I'm appearing in the court. I didn't have anything to lose by actually publishing that book. I started writing that book in April of 2021, basically because I knew that there was abuse in the relationship. As soon as October the 5th, when he sent me his long, rambling email while he was in the UK and I was still in Spain. And so my book is the truth. Now, when I had the court documents in 2022 and translated those court documents, the statements were lies, fabrications, made up. He had engaged a lawyer from Barcelona who he wrote to me in 2021 to say that he was now going with this specialist Barcelona lawyer, and he knows all about precarious eviction, and I would eventually leave the house with nothing. So in publishing my book before the hearing, I published the truth, because in a meeting that we had on September the 15th of 2020, this meeting that I had asked to be recorded because I knew that he could be angry. I knew that he could say things, humiliate and belittle, criticise, and I knew that I should ask him to record this meeting. It was meant to be a discussion between two adults on the financial settlement post-separation, after he's terminated our relationship very suddenly without any idea that it was going to happen. And so I had put my proposal on the 12th of September and we were meant to discuss my proposal, only he shut me down in the first minute of that discussion because I couldn't speak about anything, and it was for him a terribly bad idea, and it wasn't going to happen, and I had to listen to what he wanted and what he needed in a 26-minute long one-sided verbal onslaught from him, which included humiliation, intimidation, threats of me being thrown out of the door with my suitcases within 24 to 48 hours, as well as his offer of 50% of the value of the house, up to 115,000, that he would help me to pay off a mortgage in the UK, that when he left, he would start to pay 500 a month into my business account for 4 months, because he set the deadline. I had 4 months in this house. You've got 4 months, Loraine, to January the 15th, 2021. That's what he said. 4 months. Either you sell this house, buy it yourself, or just fuck off. That's what he said. What was the actual statement that the court heard as one minor verbal abuse in the gender violence court in Cartagena? What was that sentence? Well, I'll tell you what it was, because it's in my book. When I published my story, I transcribed the whole 26-minute long conversation that we had in this house here on the 15th of September 2020. And he said, they're not going to give you feedback and say, actually, you look like a fucking bleeding heart, post-menopausal, sad old bitch who's just been fucking dumped on her own again. That's what he said. Now that was picked up by a translator Spanish to English translator when I was in the office of the Guardia Civil to file emotional and psychological abuse, gender violence complaint. And a solicitor had asked me, or told me, advised me actually, to file that complaint in October of 2020 after he listened to the recording and heard how I was being spoken to by my ex-partner. I didn't want to even file a gender violence complaint, so I said to that solicitor, can you not write to his solicitor? No, did you not hear what he said? I'm told, you need to file a gender violence complaint. He said, you cannot negotiate with him. And that solicitor was right. I couldn't negotiate with him. He proved that in the 26 minutes long recording on the 15th of September. I had already been threatened that he was in control, that I had to do as he says, or he could throw me out on the streets. So 1 minute I've got Mr. Nice Guy, who's the kind, generous person. Everybody I've spoken to has said this is a very kind and generous offer that I'm making. Then the next minute, a few days later, he's in control. I do as he says, or he can throw me out on the streets. Mr. Nice Guy, Mr. Nasty. The man, the monster. This is how life was. Behind closed doors, or even sometimes humiliation in front of people, because he would say things to belittle me. I'm just a slapper from Sunderland, or some other thing that, because of the way I speak, he would demean me in front of people. And then as soon as he'd said that, it was like, come here, Loraine, give me a kiss. And I had to go over and then give him a kiss to prove that he was in control. So this is the type of man I was in a relationship with. And apparently he didn't give a fuck what anyone else thought. That's what he told me. So why did he file 7 allegations, including revealing secrets and criminal defamation from July 2022, just 3 weeks after the Precarious Eviction verbal hearing? A verbal hearing that turned out not to be a verbal hearing because I wasn't allowed to speak. I couldn't even present any evidence. My free public defence lawyer had made the decision in May of 2022. She was not even going to interrogate the plaintiff. My allegations of abuse, emotional abuse, psychological abuse, sadistic behaviour from him, cruel treatment, everything that I talked about to that free public lawyer was totally ignored. And why did she say that there was going to be no questions asked? 1, neither of us understood Spanish. Well, now that is discrimination under language in Spain because the Spanish government changed the laws in 2022. The other reason, her client, me, had no income and had recognised free legal assistance. And so the costs of a translator would fall to the court. And that's discrimination. Another ground for discrimination, socio-economic status. And so 2 different discriminations against me. And why was I not allowed a voice? Why was I not allowed to speak? Why was there no evidence at all presented? Why was a recording of a meeting that I had, 26 minutes meeting where I was intimidated, humiliated, verbally abused, threatened, with my suitcases out the door 24 to 48 hours, why was that not actually presented or even talked about or given to the judge? This whole precarious eviction court case were built on his statement of lies and the social beliefs of the Spanish justice system, lawyers, even social services wouldn't help because I was told to go to the gender violence charity CAVI and speak with a social worker there and speak with the gender violence lawyer there. And what did that gender violence lawyer say? After my case had been heard, after it had been dismissed on one minor verbal abuse, which is not the case for emotional and psychological abuse, it's a pattern of behaviour, a whole pattern of behaviour that can last for years. And women don't recognise that they're in this abusive relationship often until it actually ends. And that was my situation. I didn't know either. And so that book that I have published is raising awareness of how you can be in a relationship and not really understand the abuse that happens until actually it ends. And when it ends, then there's this massive explosion of rage, because that person who you've been in a relationship with realizes that they're going to lose a source of their supply. And that's why I wasn't behaving the way that he expected. I wasn't doing what he thought I would do. But I just decided that, right, okay, this is ending. He's going to do the right thing. And I thought he might do. And I'd already told him I was wanting to publish a book, the story, on the 27th of August when he actually ended the relationship. I actually told him that. So there was opportunity for this book to be a completely different book. But he was the one who lost control. He was the angry man. He had been an angry man for a long time, because I have another recording from 2018 and I have diary entries from 2016 and I have an email from 2014 which states on the first sentence in response to his non-apology, "You sounded angry." And he was. And that was how he stopped me from speaking. That was how he controlled me. That was how he didn't allow me to say things, because he would raise his voice, he would get angry, he would then be intimidating, and I would feel, oh, well, I best not say any more about that, or I shouldn't try to do that thing. And this is how women become ensnared, entrapped in relationships with these toxic monsters, basically. Because you might start out as an independent, income earning, with a career, a job or a business, but then this dominant alpha male person who wants to be the big provider in the relationship doesn't want you to work, doesn't want you to have your own income. They try to then, anything that you try to do, any education, any opportunity that you want to go forward with, they belittle, criticize, humiliate. All these little things build up over time to reduce your confidence, reduce your self-esteem, and you give up trying. You don't go ahead because, look, you don't want to displease the person who is meant to be your partner, your lover, you know, the person that you are looking after and they're looking after you, apparently. But, you know, that's not usually the case, because these type of people can lead double lives, and they will have multiple people on the back burner, ex-girlfriends, ex-wives. They've got all of these different people on the back burner. And I basically discovered after he ended the relationship that the woman that I thought he was having an affair, a midlife crisis, from November 2017, when he confessed to me on the 27th of December of 2017, he confessed to a woman in Sheffield. He called her his Wednesday girl. And that caused me massive emotional trauma, huge emotional trauma. I was in grief and panic attacks, anxiety for months. and tried to recover. He carried on that affair and ended it July of 2018. And when I had asked him, look, if you don't want me in your life, please tell me, right? And he said he did still want me in his life. And so I then decided I would rebuild the trust and forgive him what he'd done and move forward with my life into 2019 and then the start of 2020. And I thought that everything was coming together at the beginning of 2020 because he was making a commitment. He was going to move items from the UK to Spain, and that he was making a commitment to be more long-term in Spain than in the UK, right? So I was led into a false reality, a false dream, because there wasn't no commitment. He had then picked up another ex-girlfriend from 38 years ago, and he decided that although he'd gone back to the UK in July and was returning in August, he was packing the removal van with all our items and sending me a text message with all of the items in the van saying it's going to be like Christmas when he gets back. As soon as he got back on the 25th of August, that was it. Relationship finished on the 27th of August, that was it. He'd found his new supply, his new woman, the woman he knew when she was a teenager, and they both lived in Poole. So this is how I have written this book, to make people aware of what can happen in these types of relationships with these types of men, because I had no idea. And what type of man? I'll tell you what type of man. A man who was a bully, a man who is a coward, and a man who won't admit to his mistakes and won't make any apology and won't give any closure, because he's always right and I'm always to blame. And so this is the type of man I was in a relationship with. You can buy my book, you can read my story, you can find out a little bit more about toxic relationships. There's links to resources, to other people, doctors and people who talk about narcissistic abuse and toxic relationships. So my book, Post-Separation Abuse, Betrayal, Abandonment, What Type of Man? Author name, Loraine Kaling. Thank you for listening. Goodbye.